Welcome to the Ending Sexploitation podcast, where we decode sexual harm and provide you with active solutions. I'm your host, Haley McNamara. Well, today I am so excited to be talking with Lina Nealon. It's actually really funny to be recording our conversation because it feels like we talk every day. For those who don't know, Lina joined our organization, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, this year. She's our director of corporate and strategic initiatives, where she's doing really incredible work. But before we dive into that all, Lina, you have a really rich background of working on sexual exploitation issues. Maybe can you explain your background for everyone and how you came to NCOSE?
Sure. So my career actually started working in the security sector reform in post-conflict countries, and specifically trying to get women in leadership positions and into peace negotiations. And obviously, when a society falls apart, one of the first things, unfortunately, that happens is women and girls being sold. So I started witnessing this sexual exploitation happening. And the foundation I worked for wanted to address what they were calling modern day slavery. So very quickly, we said, how do we get to the root of this? And saw that it was the demand that drives commercial sexual exploitation, which of course includes sex trafficking. So we founded what was called Demand Abolition. It's the first national program addressing the demand for sex buying. So holding sex buyers accountable for perpetuating exploitation. And then I also helped found World Without Exploitation, a coalition of hundreds of organizations that are fighting for and with survivor leadership to change cultural norms, policies, and of course got to know the incredible work of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. And I'm so happy to be now part of this team.
So we're so lucky to have you. We're so lucky to have you, and it's been really amazing getting to work with you as you've been kind of taking on this leadership of corporate responsibility. And one of our key projects, the Dirty Dozen list, which the 2021 list was just released. But before we talk about the list, which I'm excited to get to, I wonder if you could even just explain, why does something like the Dirty Dozen list exist, especially regarding corporate responsibility involving sexual exploitation issues? Why is that something that's important?
So, as we know, corporations and brands hold incredible power and influence politically, socially, culturally. And so, they're shaping how we're thinking, how we're communicating. They're in our classrooms, shaping the minds of young students. And, they give us a lot of great products and ways of communicating, but a lot of them are also facilitating sexual abuse and exploitation. And so the National Center on Sexual Exploitation really feels that it's critical in order to move our culture towards one that is promoting dignity. We really need to hold these corporations accountable for facilitating sexual exploitation. By that, I mean child sex abuse, sex trafficking, prostitution, pornography, sexual assault, sexual objectification, and really elevating this underside of corporations that we use, on a daily, if not weekly basis, and really shifting the way that they are, how they're acting, and ideally making fighting exploitation part of their business.
Obviously, we don't have time to go through all 12 targets, although I wish we did, but let's chat about a couple of them. And one, I think that many families have gotten really familiar with over the last year is the Google product Chromebooks. Why is Chromebooks on the Dirty Dozen list?
Yes, this one also holds particular interest for me as a parent of 4 children, 3 whom are in the public schools and have school-issued Chromebooks. So Chromebooks are extremely popular, and even prior to the pandemic, about 40 million students and teachers were using Chromebooks worldwide. And we know that in 2020, shipments of Chromebooks doubled. And again, even prior to the pandemic, unfortunately, we know of countless cases of children being exposed to harmful material, hardcore pornography through school-issued Chromebooks, and even being accessed themselves by predators.
Mm.
And Google, we've been meeting for Google for several years. They've been telling us that they will make Chromebooks safer, but they continue to refuse to turn on safety features. So, I got my kids' Chromebooks. It took hours to figure out what settings to turn on, what did the school lock down, if anything. Hours and 30 steps later, I still wasn't sure if these Chromebooks were safe when Google could proactively just turn on the safety features. So, Alphabet, trillion-dollar tech company, is placing the burden on parents and on schools to keep their kids safe when, again, they could very easily just turn on these safety controls on the devices that they know have harmed children, and which I think is especially egregious during COVID, when we knew and we were hearing from the FBI, we were hearing from Interpol that the risk of children being exposed to predators online was growing, and in fact became a reality. So again, it's like Google could have done something and chose not to.
I remember one aspect of the Dirty Dozen list that most people don't get to see is that sometimes we're actually meeting with these companies and developing relationships and having conversations about, the requests that we have, improvements that need to be made. We often try to bring survivors to these kinds of meetings as well. And I know we were talking to Google, like you said, about the problem with Chromebooks back in spring of 2019 at the latest, if not earlier. And if they had been making these changes then, I mean, just the number of people who might not have been exposed to, sexually exploitive content is really incredible. I know it seems like their point of view is that it really just should be done by parents or by the school administrators. And when someone first says that, it kind of makes sense to me, except when I then hear you say it took you hours and some 30 steps to actually set up all of those things. So these parental controls or safety features, it's not just clicking one button. It's
No,
like,
no, it's multiple steps. And again, even for someone who knows and is knows a lot about these, technology and devices and social media, even for me, it was so difficult. I think the other point that's really worth making is that, not all schools have IT departments. I was finding Reddit threads of administrators saying like, we're not sure if we're doing this correctly. Of course you can get help from Google for a price, right? And also their kids are talking to each other about, hey, my school didn't block Pornhub. And when you consider too that those schools that are serving populations that are already marginalized, right? They don't have the resources necessary for a robust IT department. They may not even have the adequate filters in place. So these marginalized populations are already at further risk of exploitation, are being put at further risk by Google by giving these Chromebooks away again. And the assumption is that there are parents who can be involved. I have the time, I have the education, I have the language skills to be able to try to decipher how to keep my kids safe. Not everybody has that. So that's another point that I think is really worth making, that they're potentially further marginalizing and putting already at-risk populations at further risk.
yeah, it just seems like an absolute lack of just taking responsibility. I mean, Chromebooks obviously such a great tool for online learning in so many ways, but it just does seem use the term undue burden on parents and schools, and I just think that that's
Yep.
absolutely correct. What can people do about the Chromebooks issue?
So part of the beauty of the Dirty Dozen list is that we create very easy actions that people can take. So visit everyone should visit dirtydozenlist.com. You can search Chromebooks, and we have a petition that we're asking people to sign to the CEO of Google. Obviously, if you do have a Chromebook or a child who has a Chromebook, it's essential that you do make sure that you're locking it down to the best of your ability. And we do have resources on the Dirty Dozen list page under Chromebooks of our ally Protect Young Eyes does a really great step-by-step of how do you ensure that they're safe. And then also we even have a download, again, the burden should be on the corporations, but we all need to be involved. So, parents need to be involved, schools need to be involved. We have a downloadable letter that you can send to your school administrators, the PTA, just to say, hey, do you know that these are possible ways that kids could still be accessing harmful material, be accessed by predators? Make sure that you're informing parents. We didn't get a single, and I love our school district and they're so overwhelmed, but we didn't get a single communication about the safety of Chromebooks. No resources. We weren't even told what the IT department did or did not lock down. And sometimes schools lock it down in the way that parents can't even make them safer. So I had emailed our IT department and it took a month to get back. So again, parents need to be proactive about saying, keep us informed, keep our kids safe, but also tell us if there's more that we can do. So hold the corporation accountable, sign a petition, lock down your Chromebooks, talk to your school.
Fantastic. Another target for the 2021 Dirty Dozen list is Amazon. That's another name that people are really familiar with. I know I use them on at least a weekly basis. Why is Amazon on the Dirty Dozen list?
Amazon, another target. The majority of our targets profited enormously from pandemic, and Amazon, already a titan in so many areas. Their net profit went up 84% from 2019 to 2020. And it's rife with sexual exploitation and abuse. We really wanted to feature Amazon this year for Twitch, which is very popular. It's a streaming service. People can kind of go in and out and watch people gaming. It's very popular in the gaming community, or even just kind of chat and live stream what's going on in their own home. It tripled in size during COVID. There's now, I think, 9.2 million users. A lot of them are kids. And it is just rife with sexual harassment, especially of women in the gaming community, grooming, lots of predatory behavior with children. And it just does not have the safety features in place in order to protect kids. Amazon Marketplace has thousands of pornography titles. We looked at the top 100 recommended paid titles on Kindle and Amazon Marketplace, and 30% had very clear incest themed titles. So, which is, again, so mind-boggling when you think about that 30% of sexual exploitation is and sexual abuse of children is by family members. You're looking for a gift for your stepdaughter, and alongside necklaces and bracelets, you get titles like Forced by Stepdaddy and Daddy's Little Slut. The good news is that Amazon was on last year, again, for many reasons, but they were selling sex dolls and child sex abuse dolls. And it seems that has been removed. So there have been successes with Amazon. We were pushing on them as well as other allies. But there's so much more that can be done. They also, Amazon Web Services, which actually makes up the majority, I believe, of Amazon's profits, is hosting pornography and prostitution sites. For example, OnlyFans, which is another Dirty Dozen list target that we know is used by the commercial sex industry. So in almost every major area of Amazon's empire, they are truly facilitating and profiting from sexual exploitation. And I do think that there needs to be a lot more push from consumers saying, we don't want to see this on this platform. And again, people can sign on dirtydozenlist.com and email executives of the different departments of Amazon saying, please remove incest-themed books, make sure that Twitch has more adequate moderation policies and protections for kids, and remove prostitution and pornography from Amazon Web Services.
It's such a huge company, and it's wild to just hear you lay out how on almost all of the different subsets of this mega corporation, how they're dropping the ball, and in some cases, actively facilitating exploitation. It is encouraging to hear that the sex dolls have been mostly removed, though. I mean, sometimes you see all of these problems in such a huge corporation, and it feels like nothing can be done. So that's encouraging, at least. Hopefully we can get them to improve more.
Right. And I am hopeful that we can. And I'm sure we'll talk about victories, but I think that is the hopeful news, that they can. And I think that, I wish that they would be changing with the urgency that these issues require. But we are seeing steps. And I think the more, again, public outcry, the more people are understanding just how widespread, child sex abuse material is, in the wake of Me Too. I think more, and this movement, which I think is so positive, of consumers understanding where their products are made, how their products are made, as National Center on Sexual Exploitation and allies are raising to the forefront what is going behind the scenes. I do think that we'll see a wave and a cultural push to really hold corporations accountable in this specific area of exploitation and abuse.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's coming. I think people are starting to recognize the need for this more holistic approach. I mean, as you even said, increasing online sexual exploitation has been reported by so many sources thanks to COVID, and the fact that all of these companies need to be investing and prioritizing and making spaces, Twitch, for example, for Amazon, more safe. Another company that's on the Dirty Dozen list this year is one that a lot of people know less about, but it's also increasingly popular, and that is OnlyFans. Can you explain what OnlyFans is?
Sure. So, oldest oppression is always rebranding itself and remarketing, and OnlyFans is the latest iteration. So it's a subscription-based service. So, there are legitimate users where you can, for example, makeup tips, and you can subscribe. You have to pay a monthly fee and unlock the content that the creator is creating. However, OnlyFans, really, even from the onset, and even more so during COVID, really is now being used in the commercial sex industry. And in fact, the owner is a known pornographer and owns other companies, webcamming companies. And so this platform really is peddling this idea of empowerment, fast cash, and being an influencer. And I think this is where it's really interesting. It's known as an influencer platform, especially among young people. And that we're seeing this mix now of those in the sex industry being influencers on the culture to an extent that I haven't seen before in my more than a dozen years working on these issues. And again, they're saying it's empowerment, they're saying it's fast cash, but in reality, those who are creating this content, it's again a lot of nudes and webcamming. It's a very small percentage that actually is making any money. And so the creators are doing more and more degrading things, fetishes, requests by the fans who are paying for, again, more degrading material in order to try to get more fans. And it's also set up in a way, so OnlyFans takes 20%, but if you refer someone, the person referring also gets a cut, I think 5%. So it's literally set up for pimping and exploitation. We've even found former creators of OnlyFans saying, we're seeing these online managers who are seeking out specifically, young women, socioeconomically, women in socioeconomic distress, and saying, I'll manage your online profile. And really what they are is online pimps. So we've seen this incredible rise of OnlyFans that certainly hasn't been helped by some celebrities also going on OnlyFans. Cardi B is on OnlyFans. I think Beyonce actually also sang about OnlyFans. So there's also this pop culture and celebrities kind of endorsing this very problematic platform that we're also hearing from law enforcement survivors is very reminiscent of Backpage.com, which your listeners may remember was shut down by the Department of Justice for sex trafficking. A lot of minors were being sold through Backpage.com, and we're seeing the same things now with OnlyFans, and really hope that we can get ahead of it, that Department of Justice and attorneys generals can be looking into OnlyFans a bit more, and with all the suspected exploitation that's happening on that platform.
You kind of already touched on this, but I think it's helpful to tease it out even more, is that a lot of people who are maybe proponents of OnlyFans will say, well, this is maybe the safest and best way to create pornography because someone is directly paying you. You're not kind of going through the more traditional studio production, which is, of course, rife with coercion, as has come out in many different court cases and survivor testimonies. So there's this messaging around OnlyFans that it's a way for people to have real ownership of their content and to be, like you said, really, really empowered by that experience. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, unfortunately, what we know from survivors is that there's still incredible, both short-term and long-term harms, psychological, emotional, potentially physical. There are stories surfacing of specific sex trafficking, also stalking that's happening through OnlyFans, and just the psychological effects of selling yourself, selling your body. Again, we talked about that, trying to feeling coerced into doing more degrading acts on camera. Obviously, there's doxing happening. We're seeing a lot of cases of OnlyFans material being downloaded and then uploaded on Pornhub and other, Reddit and other pornography distributors and channels. So it's not, again, they want you to think it's safe and empowering, but we know that it's not. And just like with any aspect of the sex industry, there are very real threats. And I think that's something that really needs to be messaged, especially younger people who are hearing a very different message. They may already be sexting. We're hearing about sexting as young as, in sixth grade, that's 11 years old. And those repercussions aren't being talked about. And so, with so many reasons why we wanted OnlyFans on our Dirty Dozen list. Maybe it's not your traditional corporation, but to raise awareness, not only with law enforcement and legislators, but with parents, because we know that there are quite a few minors, and we've found threads of moms saying like their daughters are on OnlyFans, and it's just very, it's just very popular and known among high school and college students right now without understanding those long-term and short-term repercussions.
Absolutely. I think OnlyFans is also interesting, kind of following that train of thought, because there's been a lot of awareness raised in the last couple of months around exploitation on Pornhub. And we'll have to do a whole podcast episode on that. But essentially, including New York Times articles coming out about how so much content on Pornhub has been uploaded without the consent of the people in the videos. There have been videos of sexual assault, child sexual abuse, sex trafficked persons uploaded to that website. And it's interesting because with that on my brain, it's pretty quick to see OnlyFans seems to just inherently have that same business model where it's users uploading this content, and how could OnlyFans ever verify the consent of the people in these videos?
Right, they can't, and they don't, and they really can't, because I mean, first of all, it is very difficult with the paywall. It is harder for law enforcement to be involved in scanning, but you really can't know because it's user generated. You never really know who is maybe behind the screen forcing, coercing, coercing, you know, the creator to be creating that content. I have to mention too, another interesting thing about OnlyFans, which is different, you know, people are saying, well, you know, if you can get pornography for free so easily, you know, why are people subscribing to OnlyFans? And it's like this, the psychology behind that paywall is actually one of the things that is most appealing to the fans. And there's this illusion of a relationship and intimacy that you don't have when you're viewing exploitation, when you're viewing, you know, pornography. And the creators have to, in order to keep up their fan base, they have to have those one-on-one interactions. So I just thought that was an interesting one, because people often ask, well, you know, why is it so popular and why are you paying for it? And it's that illusion of intimacy that they have to give, which is yet another way of making yourself vulnerable. It's like another emotional vulnerability that you're having to engage with these fans. So I wanted
That's,
to note that piece
that's a
too. It's
really good
different
point.
than other
And
platforms.
I think too, the subscription aspect of this, in addition to that kind of emotional or that intimacy, it also makes it, and you already kind of said this earlier, so that someone can really request and order, for lack of a better term, certain sex acts or certain scenes, certain kinks. And I think that really this points to just the larger problem of when you commercialize a sex act, is that suddenly this, especially on OnlyFans, you know, this now becomes competitive. It's a competitive marketplace. You have to, you know, respond to those demands more and more if you're going to be keeping people around, because, you know, people can just order, you know, that same thing from someone else. So it seems
Yeah.
like really a race to the bottom of, you know, maybe degrading or harmful acts very often.
And that's what we're hearing from creators. I mean, that they are saying exactly that. The other thing really worth mentioning is that OnlyFans creators really rely on other social media platforms. OnlyFans doesn't have, they don't even have an app. So they're relying on Snapchat and Instagram and Reddit and TikTok to be promoting their content. So we're also seeing, I mean, just people can see the proof on our website, um, just an inundation of OnlyFans creators on these social media platforms. You know, I have accounts as a 13-year-old, and very easily I'm constantly seeing, you know, OnlyFans promotion with like one click that leads you to OnlyFans. So again, worth noting, especially for parents, to be aware that this is happening and being very much promoted across all social media platforms that we've been on.
With a lot of these other corporations, are actions that people can take include things like emailing or reaching out to the company on social media to ask them to improve, you know, maybe a parental control or something similar to that. But I doubt that OnlyFans is going to really improve the very basic premise of, you know, its entire platform. What's the action that we're hoping people take with OnlyFans?
So with OnlyFans, we do have letters to Department of Justice and to attorneys general by state, and also calling on credit card companies to cut ties with OnlyFans. So Visa is processing payments for OnlyFans. So we want to encourage the credit card companies to also cease providing the infrastructure for a very exploitative, predatory business.
I haven't signed those actions yet. I need to go and do that today. I usually try to that when the dirty doesn't
Right,
list.
we're going to keep it going. These campaigns last all year. And, we're just because a corporation, we're working with them behind the scenes as well. And as you mentioned too, I think sometimes people think like, oh, we have this big reveal and we send our lives, but we are trying to push all year round. The reveal really is the beginning of the Dirty Dozen List campaign that's ongoing. And even if targets are not on the Dirty Dozen List for a particular year, it also doesn't mean that we're not working with them either. That's another question that I often receive as, well, why aren't you pushing on this corporation? And oftentimes we are, but it's just not part of this particular campaign.
How about the Wish shopping app or platform is on the list this year? Can you explain, what, and also maybe explain what it is, because this is one that it's very popular internationally,
Right.
certainly in the US, but I think people don't know about it as much as some other targets.
Yeah, it's an online shopping app that it's like top 10 in the world. It is quite popular with younger people. It's it's cheap goods, basically. And Wish is on there because they are one of the top advertisers with MindGeek. MindGeek is the parent company of Pornhub, which is one of the largest, second most viewed pornography website in the world, that really has come under light, long overdue. I mean, we've been shedding light on Pornhub, and so have our allies. But there was a December investigative article in the New York Times about Pornhub, really shedding light on how systemically they were including material that was, not just depicted, but actual videos and images of child sex abuse, sex trafficking, sexual assault, and a lot of brave survivors, really started by Rose Kalemba back in early 2020. And then more survivors were coming out to speak about the abuses of Pornhub and just the recklessness with which they, left those videos up, were profiting from them. And MindGeek, the parent company, also did very little, and continues, they have several other website, I think about like 160 different websites. So they also have this advertising agency. Wish is one of their top advertisers. And we know from the MindGeek executives who've been called to testify in Canadian Parliament from the Ethics Committee that 50% of their revenue is from ads. So what does that mean? That by Wish advertising with MindGeek, they are literally putting money in the pockets of this exploitative enterprise. So one of the things that the National Center on Sexual Exploitation is doing, and our mission is to dismantle that infrastructure of the pornography industry, dismantle the infrastructure of MindGeek. And so we're calling on these corporations like Wish, like credit cards, who are continuing to be in partnership with these, with the porn industry. And also Wish is on there. They are selling child sex abuse dolls. I have found images that very clearly are depicting a child. One image in particular had a child in what was clearly a hotel room. Her feet didn't even go over the couch, with torn clothing. So, I mean, very graphic child sex trafficking, right? And they're selling these along with, adult sex abuse dolls, and also webcams, specifically marketing, like to be used for non-consensual images. So they have webcams showing an image of a woman taking a shower. So when you think about, here's someone watching non-consensually shared images on Pornhub, and then an ad for Wish pops up saying, hey, buy a webcam and you can be doing this too, and upskirting and, filming women without their consent. So, Wish has these like multiple angles where they really are promoting exploitation, misogyny, and directly supporting what we know is basically, an exploitative and likely criminal enterprise.
I think the spy cam kind of webcams are really disturbing. On our website, we have proof, so you can go and look yourself. I mean, you know, it's not the most amazing imagery to put into your brain, so I don't really recommend it. But I remember when I first saw those, I was so stunned because, I mean, of course, you know, a nanny cam or something like that can be misused, and we all know that. But the fact that it's marketed that way, I mean, like you literally, I think I remember seeing one where it showed someone had set up the webcam to, you know, look at a girl who was getting undressed. That's like the advertising on the product. And it was just really stunning to me that a corporation would host that and sell that, and not just one, but a number of spy cams that were marketed that way. And you know, these companies, I know they have a lot of products on their platforms, but they keep off products that they don't want to. You know, they certainly have a system for it, and if they don't, they should, because I just find that so appalling.
It is. No, it really is appalling. I also remember the first time when I was collecting evidence for Wish, and I'm like, how, with everything I've seen, right? Like, you think you've seen it all. I'm like, how is this happening? And okay, right? It's ridiculous. I mean, luckily, you know, several countries have made it illegal to own or ship child sex abuse dolls. I know that there's legislation bubbling here in the United States too, the Creepers Act, very aptly named, to make it illegal to buy and sell child sex abuse dolls. But it's just sometimes it's just you think you've seen it all, and more you see, you know, even worse. But yeah.
It can be so overwhelming hearing about all of these mainstream companies, and all these different ways that they're facilitating exploitation or normalizing it. What would you say to someone who feels like this is a bit of a lost cause?
I know it can feel so daunting, especially going against these, you know, giant corporations, you know, Fortune 500 companies, and it can seem utterly overwhelming and daunting. But I take so much hope in knowing that we have had so many victories. You know, we have a track record, you know, Haley, largely created by you and the team at Nicosi before my time, of more than 100 victories with major corporations, you know, Amazon, Google, Netflix. And so I have to look at those and take hope, because when you look at, again, just the influence they have culturally, but then also you know, they're setting industry standards when they're changing, and they're the number, you know, when users are in the millions, even billions, right? Like TikTok is, they're predicting 1.2 billion users, and TikTok was on the Dirty Dozen list last year. And a few months later, you, I know, and others met with TikTok executives, and TikTok instituted so many incredible changes that now are, again, I think we're talking to other social media entities and saying, look at what TikTok did. They made, you can't direct message minors if you're under 16. 13 to 15 automatically default privacy settings, and some other features aren't even allowed for 13 to 15-year-olds. There's a PIN protected parental controls. All other controls are suggestions. Unless you have a PIN protected parental control, you know, kids can very easily undo any safety features that parents may have instituted. And, you know, TikTok was known as a predator's playground. And I think it was because it was on the Dirty Dozen list. Our team met with them, and there was enough public pressure that they really took it seriously. So TikTok to me is like one of the biggest wins. And I know that we've had, you know, a lot more. I'm happy to talk about more of them.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you're talking about TikTok too, because I feel that way also. You know, so we have had so many victories, people from Google to the Department of Defense, but TikTok stands out to me because so many children were being, you know, harmed on that platform, and they're still not 100% perfect. You know, we still have some things that we're asking them to improve, but the fact that they really took almost line for line the different problems that we had with their platform is really incredible. do you think, I guess, what would be your rallying cry for people to go and actually take these actions at dirtydozenlist.com? Obviously they're listening to this, so they care, but why does taking an action actually help?
So we've heard from multiple corporations throughout the years that one email to them is about 1,000 customers. So they're considering, you hear from one person, 1,000 other people are, feel the same way. So we create such easy actions. I mean, really, it takes less than a minute per action. So in theory, you could go on the Dirty Dozen list and in under 15 minutes, take all of the actions, again, to Department of Justice, an email to your AG, an email or a tweet to an executive. And it really is because of actions like people listening now. Some corporations, for them, that's enough. I know Hilton came to Nkosi, they were on there for their on-demand pornography. And Hilton came to us saying, we are getting thousands of emails. Can you please stop? And we said, yeah, we'll stop as soon as you stop, allowing on-demand pornography in your rooms. And they changed it. And they said they even came out with a statement saying it was against their values as a corporation. And then Hyatt followed suit, and Marriott, and Intercontinental Hotels. So it then created this industry standard. So, people, I think some corporations really are listening to their customers, or, as a shareholder, like, make your voice heard. And other times it also helps open up those doors for, our team and our allies, especially, survivor-led organizations, to continue those conversations and educate these executives and these corporations. Some of them don't, I truly believe, don't know the extent and don't understand the harms that they're facilitating and possibly even profiting from. So again, your voice really does matter. It really makes a difference. We have seen it. It's 15 minutes of your time that could literally have an effect on millions of people, if not billions, when you think about the aggregate.
Well, that's encouraging. I think that's a really good note to end on. We're not powerless in this situation. There's actually so much that we can do, proven track record, that when people speak out, change can happen. So that's encouraging. That's encouraging to me. Great. Well, thank you so much, Lina. We'll have to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, to talk about the progress from this year.
Yes. Next time you'll be telling us all of the victories.
That's right.